Irish legend says that in 1588, a couple ships from the Spanish Armada crashed. On these ships were crates and barrels of potatoes, according to legend, of course. It was precious cargo. The potatoes drifted onto Irish shore somehow, and they were discovered by the people. This precious cargo is the humble potato. As you probably have guessed from this lovely picture of a potato on the screen. Don't dig into it too much. There's not much intellectual depth in this picture of a potato. But anyways, the potato, I'd like to say that this potato has a lot of significance. A lot of you might be looking at this potato and think, it's lumpy. It's got black bumps on it, and or you could be thinking that you're hungry and you want to eat this potato. If you haven't eaten breakfast, then you'll want to eat this potato. But I'll just keep going. By the 1800s, Ireland was completely dependent on the potato. I'll paint you a picture of what Ireland looked like in the 1800s. It was an agricultural nation, and it was overpopulated. It had 8 million people, and life expectancy was very low. It was only 40 years for men. And families were also very large. They lived in compacted houses, and they farmed for a living. And Ireland was known for having one of the highest densities of people in the world at the time. HistoryPlace.com says that 3 million Irish depended solely on the potato. It was rich in protein, it was rich in carbohydrates, it was rich in minerals, and it was rich in vitamins. Vitamin C, niacin, and I can't remember the third one, but the potato was really good. At the time, in fact, scientists think that Irish peasants were healthier than British peasants because they survived on the potato and they got a lot of nutrients from it. So nowadays we say there are people living from paycheck to paycheck. Back in Ireland, people lived from potato to potato, essentially. Harvest time was in autumn, and once the harvest happened, things were good. People carefully stored the potatoes and things were fine. But in the lean months, when potatoes were growing, things were tough. But as long as the harvest went fine, people continued living. The Irish consumed 7 million tons of potatoes a year. In 1845, disaster struck. Everything seemed okay at first. It was the summertime. When people dug out the potatoes, it looked fine. They put it away, but 5 days later, usually, around a couple days later, it would turn slimy and black, and it would seem to decay. People had no idea what was going on. This is what it looks like after being infected. Now we know that this was caused by a Mexican fungus called Phytophthora infestans. But at the time, people were terrified. They didn't know what was happening to their livelihood. Some people guessed what was happening. They thought of crazy theories, or nowadays we think they're crazy, but back then they had no idea what was going on to their lives. So some people thought it was from railroad smoke, some people thought it was from static electricity, and others thought it came from underground volcanoes. Since there were very few edible potatoes left, famine struck Ireland. Cholera, dysentery, and lice infections plagued the starving people, and people died like flies. It says that in 10 years, a quarter of the Irish population died from this famine, making it one of the biggest famines in recent history. People resorted to cannibalism, and the poor relatives of the dead had no way to bury their loved ones properly, so millions of people were buried just inches below the ground with no coffin. Relief didn't come easily. Since British landowners owned most of Irish land, the British wanted to keep the money coming in from the ruling classes instead of helping the peasants. So they would rather not incur expenses and run a deficit than help the starving people. DigitalHistory.com says that in the next 10 years, over 750,000 died and 2 million more migrated to Canada, Great Britain, and America. A man called Dr. Anul Aram said that of the Irish famine, 1 million died and 1 million migrated to the U.S. It was unfortunate that the Irish were dying when people in Europe had plenty of food. So, take a look at the potato once more. It doesn't seem very deep, as I've said before, but if it weren't for this potato, if it weren't for that one potato on that Spanish Armada ship, maybe millions of people wouldn't have died. Maybe Ireland wouldn't become so dependent on the potato as their crop. And maybe America wouldn't be the same, since Irish people wouldn't be coming in. So this potato holds a bigger story than you might think, and I'd like to leave you with a joke, perhaps in bad taste, but I'll say it anyways. How many potatoes does it take to kill an Irishman? If you guys are thinking it already, it's 0 potatoes.
16. Oh.
Well, 7 million tons of potatoes could also kill an Irishman when they fall on it, but anyways, that's all I'd like to leave you with. And think about the potato next time when you eat it, and be grateful that you have potatoes to eat.